Good evening, Cedar Falls. Welcome to the committee meeting for today, October 17th, 2022. I now call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Schultz.
Here.
DeBoer. Cruz.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Sires.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember DeBoer absent.
All right, thank you very much. So we have a couple things on the list for Finance and Business Operations Committee, with the first one being a report from our Human Rights Commission, the annual report. And on the list to give that report is Human Rights Commissioner and Chair Ishan Vajpayee. So Mr. Vajpayee, thank you, and please start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So just real brief background on the Human Rights Commission. Part of the reason we exist is because Iowa law, specifically the Iowa Civil Rights Act, requires communities of this size to have a Human Rights Commission. But I think that this city has always treated us as more of an asset and a real partner in furthering some initiatives regarding DEI as opposed to just a statutory appendage. So for refresher, we deal with issues regarding age, color, creed, familial status, gender identity, marital status, mental disability, national origin, physical disability, race, religion, retaliation, sex, and sexual orientation in the areas of employment, housing, public accommodation, education, credit. So that's generally our scope. The presentation tonight is for our FY22 annual report, which covers July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. So during that time, we had one commissioner resign or removed for lack of attendance and 2 resignations. One of those occurred in this fiscal year, but another occurred outside, but I'm still going to mention some of those. So one resignation came from longtime Commissioner Susan Langen, who had always been and continued to her last day to be a real asset and great contributor to the commission. Another was from Terry Jorgensen, who I say the exact same thing about. Terry was a person with physical disabilities and really helped us understand the plight of someone in that situation. And she resigned under good circumstances. And currently, our commission consists of myself as chair, Sonia Bach as vice chair, Jordan Baranek, Melissa Heston, Dave Kivett, and Spencer Levert. Additionally, and while this is outside of the technical FY22 scope, we recently added Kyle Wiebers, Jennifer Onebo, Donna Mallon, Bob Wright, and Julie Klagel, who I think all of our new people might be here except for one. So we're an all-volunteer commission. We're really happy to have the additional brain power and experience that these people will bring to us. And so if you want to stand, stand. If not, just wave your hand. And okay. So to thank for all that, I'd like to thank the mayor's prompt appointment of those suggested by the nominating committee. Kelly Dunn sat on that with me, and so I thank her and Bailey Schindel as well. In terms of staff shout-outs, Kevin Rogers has been really great about taking every little question we have about proper parliamentary procedure and proper scope and what we can and can't do. So he's really good at that. Bailey Schindel and Brenda Valvance have been great staff people to work with, and we're looking forward to the DEI specific position to be filled and have them step into that role. Jennifer Rodenbeck has attended meetings, and so has the mayor, and they've been great help. So I feel like I gave this report not that long ago, but as I've mentioned in the past, we spent a lot of time this year creating structure. Creating structured committees to specifically address our biggest missions, educating ourselves, reaching out to the community, educating them about what we can do for them and on specific issues relevant to DEI, and then advocacy, which is a little bit more like what we used to do, responding to specific complaints from specific individuals about a problem or an issue in the Cedar Valley, or Cedar Falls technically, but there's a lot of adjacent issues. We've put on a genealogy event with partnerships with the library for African American Heritage Month. We've created a proclamation calendar so that we're right on schedule with the council meetings and getting proclamations for various months, and we hope to publicize the events we put on when we give those. So looking forward to next year, we hope to have all our new people really contribute to the process of refining structure so we have consistency in the commission going forward, and hope to further engage with the community and make ourselves be seen as a real resource to turn to. So any questions?
I have one. So with you getting back onto the commission, thank you, and continuing and stepping into leadership role, I know, with COVID, the years have spun together, but recently changing directions, I feel like we're in stride with that. My question is multiple fold. One is, how is that going? Still a strong trajectory with that? If not, I'd like to hear about it. And then second, is there anything that we as a council can do to further help with your autonomy and or help the commission continue to push it?
Yeah, thank you. So on that last point, I think the commission is receiving the most amount of assistance. I can only speak from my experience, but the most amount of assistance from the city it ever has in terms of financial assistance, increasing the budget, increasing the size, prompt appointments, things like that. So thank you for that. I think that we are on a good pathway to moving into our new focus of advocacy on a more limited basis, on a less adversarial basis was the real goal, to not be an arbiter between an employer and maybe an employee who have a complaint. They're both Cedar Falls citizens, so to speak, and it put us in a real hard spot. We want to listen more and try and find, less adversarial solutions. And So I think we are on a good path there. These commissioners, including the newbies, have endured their first 2.5-hour meeting under my gavel, and they take it pretty well. So we're doing a lot of work. So
Cool. Good. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for your service to our community. Okay, so that moves us over to number 2 on the agenda, which is council meeting procedures, order of agenda, rule number 3.1, and then miscellaneous administrative corrections. And this, I believe, was a referral brought forward by Councilman Cruz. So Councilman Cruz, did you want to speak to what you're hoping to
Sure.
get changed here?
I was just looking at, I guess, the practicality of, speeding up the process potentially if during a council update, something is brought up after we have the opportunity to do a referral, reversing the order so that any topics that might trigger a referral thought could be then brought up right after that at the council referral. So it's a minor adjustment in the scheduling for a council meeting.
Question.
Okay, yes.
For staff or for Kevin Rogers, just to make that change, I'm on board. It makes sense from a logical standpoint. It's just admin policy 7 that would have to be changed under, or are there other places we would have to change it?
Now, after changing the ordinance, that's the only spot. And it's no longer admin policy 7. It's got a new
Oh,
number,
that's
which I
right.
cannot recite to you at this point. But
Okay.
that's the only spot we need to change it, procedure now.
Procedure, okay. All right. That was my only question. I'm good with it. I think it makes sense.
I can get on board with it, but I still stick to the part where we have talked about where, unless there's a real emergency for last-minute referrals, that we really should be trying to get away from, which I believe was a, quote, gentleman's agreement that I've never really seen happen, of last-minute referrals, just for the sake of, I mean, even if it's a great referral, we should want people to have time to kind of, the warning of knowing it's coming, I feel like is beneficial. So it makes sense. I'll go with it. But and also just the kicking back to staff all the time on this stuff is kind of, I feel like it's taking up a lot of time. So there's my 2 cents. Anyone else have anything to offer up for council comments?
I think, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to double check, and I don't know, Mayor Green, to put you on the spot, but item 4.9, I don't have the text in front of me in the amendment. Obviously, it'll come back before council, but can you just read the duplicative text from 4.5 that we'd be removing, or from 4.9, excuse me, that we'd be removing?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak. So item 4.9 just says order of consideration of agenda, and that language is exactly the same as what's in 4.5 in the meeting procedures. As an accident on my part, just to not remove it when I switched out the order. And then there's a couple other items that are in there in that cover memo I provided that are related to a couple of sections that the rules refer to. Those sections were eliminated in our recent update of the code, so I just wanted to remove those out as well. So not just administrative, wouldn't change any procedures at all.
Makes sense. I think as far as the logistics changing and getting it all clean at once is a better move, so we don't have to revisit this often. So I think I'm okay with it.
I'd make a motion to direct staff to go ahead and get those changes as we talked about today going.
Okay.
Have them brought before
Second.
council.
Second? Yeah.
Do we need anything else? Do we need an actual motion to do this, or just, okay. And voice vote? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Okay, staff have what they need to make those changes? All right, that concludes the Finance and Business Operations Committee portion of this committee meeting, and next we will have a Committee of the Whole, and the chair is Councilman Harding.
I don't get the gavel.
Oh,
That's all right. You don't have to hand it down, but I do like it.
Oh, no, we will.
All right, hand it down. Thank you. power has been transferred. All right, welcome to Committee of the Whole, and we have an excellent presentation tonight from you and I, so thank you for being here. I believe Jamar Thompson and David Harris are going to come up. We also have President Nook here, who's making his way, so President Nook, come on up first. Thank you, welcome.
If you don't mind, I will start.
Yeah, go for it.
Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be back with the council and talk a little bit about an amazing project at the University of Northern Iowa. As many of you have heard, recently we announced a large capital campaign, comprehensive campaign at the University of Northern Iowa to raise funds in many areas. One of those is for some iconic spaces, our Campanile, which will be 100 years old in 2026, and the Unidome, which will be 50 years old in 2026. It's really hard for me to believe that the Unidome is going to be 50 years old in 2026. I graduated from high school the year it opened, and it just can't possibly be nearly 50 years ago that I graduated from high school and that facility opened. We're here, though, tonight to ask the city to help us in raising funds for this particular building. And we're here because we think it's a very important part of this community. As you think about the Unidome, most people realize that it is the most recognized facility in Cedar Falls and throughout the Cedar Valley. You can show people pictures of just about any structure in our city, and the one they will pick out as belonging in Cedar Falls is the Unidome, even perhaps over our Campanile and other structures in our city. We also know that people often think of it as the home of the Panthers, which is true. It's where our football team plays. It's where they win championships. It's also where our track and field team practices and participates and hosts the Missouri Valley Conference tournament almost every year in indoor track and field. But it's also the home of so many more events in our community, from events that include a volleyball tournament that put 14 courts down inside of that this year for youth volleyball tournament. It's home to a major wrestling tournament. No other facility in the area can put down as many wrestling mats at one time for young kids to come in and wrestle from around the country and spend days, their family and them spending days here. It's also the place that's the home for the first robotics competition, along with the McLeod Center. It brings teams from not just around this state, but around seven states in the region, plus Canada, to compete in the first robotics competition here in the Cedar Valley. And we've been told by the people that organize that this is the #1 venue in the entire country for a regional competition, and it's better in many ways than the one they use for the national competition. This is a facility that brings people here for hotel stays. This is a facility that brings people here and they eat in our restaurants. They visit our businesses. It has about a $17 million annual economic impact on this community. So we're here to ask for your help. We've got a big lift to raise $50 million to improve this facility for the next 50 years. It is a tremendous resource for the Cedar Valley, but especially for Cedar Falls. It brings in revenue to our hotel industry, to our restaurant and food service industry, and to many of our businesses as they visit this wonderful downtown, the Hill, and the businesses out on Viking. It is a facility that impacts this community in a big way. So I ask you to think closely and carefully about the request that we put in front of you. And at this time, I want to turn it over to Jamar Thompson to tell you a little bit more about the actual ask and what we're trying to do. Jamar?
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing us the time to share our plans for the dome renovation project. We are extremely excited about this because this is a pillar in the community, and we are certainly happy to see what we can achieve for the next 50 years. So we want to go through some of the history of the project and to where we got to today. The history piece is important to show the legacy that the dome has left, and then today how we carry that legacy going forth. So as President Nook noted, we are in the Our Tomorrow campaign, and the Dome is part of that. The campaign goes till 2026, when the Dome celebrates 50 years of existence, and it's part of the iconic spaces of the 4 pillars that has been set for the campaign. But the vision is to build the UNI tomorrow needs, and we need to build the Unidome that tomorrow needs as well. So when we specifically look at the Dome project, it started off as a vision. Right? So a vision from a guy named Stan Sheriff, who at the time was the head football coach, and he was an athletic director, and the field is actually named after him. but the vision to bring a multi-purpose facility to Cedar Falls, to the state of Iowa, to the Midwest, which didn't exist at the time. When the dome was originally built, it was the first domed, air-supported stadium, the second collegiate dome behind Idaho State, which was built in '76. But the whole purpose was to build a multi-purpose facility, not a football facility, not a track facility, but a multi-purpose stadium that could be used for various needs. So when you look at some of the marketing materials that they had created at the time, the whole intent, again, is for a multi-purpose facility. So from big entertainers to pop concerts to commencements to athletic events, this was always the vision of the dome. And that was always what has been carried out since it was originally built in 1976. So when we look at some of the news articles at the time, there's an editorial. It talks about a mini dome. So the dome was built, it was $7.5 million at the time. But in the right side, it talks about it being ambitious. The $10 million campaign for athletics at the time, the fund drive, was ambitious and needs and deserves public support. And that's part of the reason why we're here today, because this project needs, and hopefully you feel deserves, public support from your standpoint. So from the early architectural drawings in the 60s and the 70s to a dome-inflated stadium to bringing this forth to the state. So bringing this to the Secretary of Agriculture, Robert Lonsberry, to Governor Robert Ray, and the president at the time for the University, John Camrick. But starting off this vision, 3D model, let's bring this thing to life. So what happened? Then came the work. The work to actually raise the funds to get this facility built. People can believe, yeah, this sounds like a great idea, but until you actually put pen to paper and actually show the progress of the work being done, it's just an idea. So the work came with a guy named T. Wayne Davis, which one of the entrances is named after. T. Wayne was a local businessman. He was not a UNI alum, but his connection and his forethought of seeing what the vision of this place could do drew him enough where he wanted to raise and be a part of the big campaign to raise money for the Dome project. So his task was to convince people that a dome facility could work and could thrive here in Cedar Falls. We have a quote from his daughter, who's in California, that talks about there were a lot of naysayers to T. Wayne and his efforts, and Stan's efforts to build a dome. But that only drove those guys further to get this project done. So we look at the groundbreaking ceremony, to the construction of the actual facility, to now we have the hard shell, which it was inflated when it was first built, but the hard shell, so we don't have to worry about the deflated roofs anymore. And the last piece came the legacy. The legacy, the impact that this facility has provided to the university, the state, and the city for almost 50 years. So from the likes of Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger, the Fleetwood Mac, to hosting RAGBRAI, to the biggest volunteer community event that we believe, the Martin Luther King Day service, the backpack program that takes place every year in the Dome now. So we believe it's time again to renew the Unidome tomorrow needs. It's been Homo Panther athletics for almost 50 years. It's been a pillar in the community with everything that it does and provides economic impact to the Cedar Valley. So when we dive into this a little deeper, as President Nook noted, $17 million in economic impact occurs annually from the impacts of the Dome, and 500,000 visitors come visit this place. They come here for the first time because of an athletic event, because of a concert, because some type of boat show or antique show, you name it. They come here for the first time. It's a front door to our community, a front door to our campus. So the likes of ROTC training, to voting sites, to Special Olympics, this place has been true to what it's originally established as a multi-purpose facility. So what about the next 50 years? That's our task, that's our challenge. We've been given something that has a legacy, and we have the onus now to carry that on for another 50 years and ensure it can be viable for the community and its impact. So with that, I will pass it along to our athletic director, David Harris.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to come and speak to you about this extremely important project. As already been said, I'm David Harris. This is my 7th year as athletics director at the University of Northern Iowa. We're extremely excited about this project and about the opportunity to be able to do something that we feel is truly transformational for our community. So how did we start this process? So back in 2018, we developed a strategic plan called Panthers Rising for the UNI Athletics Department. It had a number of different components to it, but one of those components was facilities area. And that was the first time that we had identified that the dome ultimately would be something that we needed to focus in on. So we brought in a group to do a feasibility study in the fall of 2019 because we needed some help being able to identify exactly what we wanted to hone in on. What would be the most important aspects and what would be the priorities in this process. So we brought in Perkins and Will to work with us, and they did a number of different interviews. They talked with student athletes, they talked with coaches, administrators, they did some benchmarking work as well to be able to help us come up with goals for the project, and then ultimately to decide what are the areas that we wanted and needed to focus on. Those goals are located here on the screen, providing a modern multi-purpose facility, raising the profile of Panther athletics, and ensuring the long-term viability of the dome, and then improving the amenities and the infrastructure. So from that, we developed, and what you see here are the highlights of the project. We had to decide of all the things that we could ultimately do with the dome, what would be the things that were most important. And we decided we really needed to focus on the experience that our patrons, our customers, those who are visiting the dome for so many of the different events, what are the things that we could do to make it a better experience for them? How could we make them more comfortable? How could we ensure that people wanted to continue to come to our community to come to these events? As Jamar mentioned, we feel that that legacy has been handed to us, and it's our responsibility to make sure that the dome continues to be a great facility for our community so it can continue to be a revenue driver for businesses and hotels and restaurants in the area. So the highlights include new seating, restrooms and premium areas, new indoor track, new lighting, sound system and signage, a new football team meeting room, which has recently been completed, the replacement of the fabric roof, centralized entrance and expanded concourse, and then greater accessibility for all. As it says here, it's time to renovate and renew the dome to serve fans, athletes, community, and state for the next generation. So now we'll share with you some of the renderings of the dome, and this is looking at the west side. So what you'll notice here immediately is that we would like to create one centralized entrance for the dome. And so this just gives you a concept of what that can look like. Most of the people who are coming to the dome are coming in on the west side. And so we want to create a grand entrance where they can come in. You'll notice that to the north and to the south, there are two areas that have the Welcome to the Unidome on them. Those are meant to represent restrooms. One of the biggest components of this project has to be additional restrooms for the facility. We are not near where we need to be as far as providing that amenity to our fans, and so we're making a significant investment there. The other thing that we are able to do by moving those restrooms sort of to the ends is it allows us to be able to open up the concourse. It allows us to be able to double the size of the concourse so that the congestion that many times happens within the facility can be alleviated. You'll also notice a couple of elevator shafts there. The elevator will go in one of those two locations. We need an elevator to be able to get up to the suite level. Right now, for those who want to come and be a part of a premium experience within the dome, you have to go all the way up the steps. There is no elevator to get people up there. So if you're elderly or if you're disabled, you're not able to have that opportunity. This is just another look at the west side, gives you a sense of how people would be able to interact with the facility. And this is a look at the west concourse looking south. So it just gives you a little sense of how we're trying to expand the area. Once you move the restrooms to the north and the south, it allows you to be able to open up the area. As we mentioned, if people are in line for the restroom and people are in line for the concession stands and people are moving up and down the concourse, then it can get awfully congested. So we need to be able to open up that space in a significant way. This is a look at the restrooms, as we mentioned earlier, specifically with our ladies who are coming to the events. We don't have nearly enough restrooms to accommodate the people who come to the Dome for concerts, for sports shows, for other events that are happening in the community. So we have to make a significant investment there. As of right now, we try to deal with that by opening up restrooms in the McLeod Center when we're having an event in the Dome. But really, we need to make the investment to have those under one roof to continue to be a modern, viable facility. This is another look at the concourse as people are interacting with the concessions as well as going into the vomitories. And this is maybe the best look at what we're trying to create with the concourse to give you a sense of the size and the scale that we'd like to be able to create. As we mentioned, this is roughly doubling the size of the concourse and gives people much better opportunity based on where the restrooms are going to be and based on the size of the concourse to be able to move around. You'll also see there to the left of the screen where the elevator would be so that people are able to come in directly to the facility, go to their right, and then be able to go up to the premium seating area. This is a look at the Dome with the football turf down. It just gives you a sense that one piece of the project is to be able to add to the graphics of the facility. We really would like to be able to do that on the inside and the outside. We feel like that's something that the Dome would really need. We need to do more to tell the story of all the fantastic things that have happened within the facility. This also shows you where the team meeting room, which is recently finished, and we recently had the ribbon cutting for, is located. And while you can't see it exactly here, one of the things that we talked about earlier is that we need to replace the fabric roof for the Dome. The fabric roof is about 25 years old. It's at the end of its useful life. And so we believe that where the fabric roof and the steel portion of the roof come together is where we've been having some leaks within the facility. And as you know, as we're trying to continue to have the facility be one that's used by a variety of people and customers, then that's an issue that we have to solve. That's something that we have to make a priority. And so it's something that we would like to be able to address beginning next summer to be able to replace just that fabric portion of the roof that lets the light into the facility. This gives you a look at our recently finished football team meeting room. It's given us an opportunity to be able to give our student athletes a home. Our football team has not had a team meeting room really ever. They've used different classrooms and other locations to be able to do that, and so it's been a priority for us to have this room for a period of time. We were able to make it happen thanks in part to a grant from the Van G. Miller Family Charitable Foundation, who has the naming rights to the space, and we were able to do a ribbon cutting for this homecoming weekend. So it's not only a football team meeting room, but we're also able to use it as 2 suites on game day to give us a revenue-generating opportunity, or if there are other types of events that are happening within the facility. This room has the ability to be open the way that you see it now, but there's also a door that can come down and divide it into 2 areas, offense on one side, defense on the other, or, as we've said, to have it be rented out to 2 different groups or families or companies who want to use it as a premium seating area. So it gives us a revenue-generating opportunity. This is a look with the football field up and the track down. A couple of things you'll notice immediately is we'd like to get a lot more purple into the facility. Right now, with our seats, they're red, yellow, and blue. And so we want to be able to replace the seating because the seating right now is really steel bleachers with chair backs. We would like to actually put seating in there, seats that would have not only chair backs, but would actually have drink holders as well. But the big thing that you'll notice here in a second is that we'd like to be able to widen the aisles, and we'd like to be able to add arm rails, and we'd like to be able to do some things that make it easier for people to be able to get in and out of the facility. We've had people tell us previously that they stop coming to events because they don't feel safe going up and down the steps. So we feel that the additional space in the aisles and the arm rails will be able to help us to be able to do that. But also you'll notice, and President Nook mentioned it, we have hosted the Missouri Valley Conference Indoor Track Championships for a number of years. And so our track is in a position where now it needs to be resurfaced. So this gives us an opportunity to be able to do that. And we're using purple as our main color for that. We feel it just gives you a better sense that this is truly the home of the Panthers with the color scheme that we're looking to use. As I mentioned, this is a look at the west side. It gives you a better sense of widening the aisles, adding in the new seats, adding in the arm rails, and also you'll notice here at the top, we would like to redo our suite area. The suites right now, there are 3 suites that seat about 40 people apiece, and those are too large. And so we would like to have more suites, but to have them be smaller in size than what we have right now. So we're looking at doing a renovation that would give us 10 suites, each in from about 10 people to maybe 15 or 16 people. Once again, as people are coming to our community, they're coming for events, they're coming for concerts, they're coming for whatever it is that has brought them to the area. Can we offer them an opportunity for a modernized, updated, premium experience? We feel that's something that we're missing in having this be a true multi-purpose facility. So we want to make the investment to be able to do that as well. This just gives you a sense of how people would interact into the facility when they come in and they go to the elevator and go to the top level and get off the elevator. This is how they would be able to enter into the suites. And this is just another sense of what we would have in mind from a graphics package. This is on the east side that faces Hudson. As we mentioned, we want to do more to have graphics, tell the story, add more of the school color to the facility. It's a $50 million project that has 3 phases, the first of which, the football team meeting room, as we've mentioned, we've already started because that's recently been completed. Next up would be the roof replacement, the fabric roof, hopefully next summer. And then the west addition, everything that we've talked about on the west side, the new entrance, the restrooms, the concourse, all of those things would happen then. The second phase would be some behind-the-scenes enabling that we need to do in order to make sure that the rest of the project can go along smoothly, as well as the track replacement, and then the improvements in the bowl that we talked about, specifically with the seats, the arm rails, and the spacing. And then phase 3 would be the graphics, the sound system. We also want to do some new lighting within the facility, and to put a marquee out on the corner of Hudson and 27th Street so that people know what's happening within the facility, no matter what type of activity or event we have going on. Because sometimes we will hear people say, we're not sure what's happening in the dome, we're not sure what's going on, what's the event, and we try to make sure that we publicize that in every way possible. But it's pretty powerful if, as you're driving up and down Hudson, you have the opportunity to be able to see that because we have a marquee strategically placed so that everybody can see it, they know the events that are going on, and they can certainly come to the event of their choosing. So as it says, it's time to renew the vision for the Dome for the next 50 years. All of us at UNI take our responsibility very seriously to ensure that the Dome is a viable facility for this community for the next 50 years. As it says here, among other things, supporting the next chapter of success, bringing the next generation of major events, elevating the experience, strengthening Panther pride, build upon the legacy of the Dome, and contribute to the economic impact. We feel that the Dome, it's been shown that the Dome has a significant economic impact on the city on the area, and we feel that making this investment will allow that to not only continue, but to increase over time. So investing in the future begins with all of us. As we begin, this is a part of the Our Tomorrow campaign, a university campaign that has a $250 million goal. The Dome is a $50 million piece of that. It is truly an iconic space for the university, for the athletics department, but for this community, and we believe for the state. And so because of that, we respectfully ask the council's consideration for a gift, for an investment in this project in the range of $3 to $5 million. I know those proposals have been delivered to each of you. We feel that as a lead donor, as a lead investor for this project, not only does it give us an opportunity to be able to move forward, but it sets the tone with a number of other conversations that we're having with individual private donors who many times ask about what the city or the county or the state or others are doing, because they recognize the value that is there. And so by making this statement, by making this investment, we not only feel that it'll help us now, but it'll help us in future conversations as we go forward in meeting that goal. $50 million is a big goal. It's the biggest project that we've ever done, but we plan on making it happen. We plan on getting this done, but we need to do it together as a community family who understands the importance that this project has and the tone that it sets and the message that it sends about really wanting to be open to all of the people, all of those who want to come to Cedar Falls to see events, to see games, to see concerts, that we're really serious about giving them a quality experience. With that, I'll stop and answer any questions that any of the council members have.
All right, thank you. I don't have any questions at the moment. Well, I do, but I'll open it up to council first, so I don't take up. Are there any council questions?
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Councilmember
Chairman.
Sires.
I do have a question. I believe that Cedar Falls takes a fee from UNI of about $500,000 a year for fire protection. What about if we forgave that for 20 years? That would add up to $10 million. Would you guys be receptive to something like that? This is just my own idea. So that's something I've been thinking about. That's money that I believe you pay us, and that could be used for a project like this. I don't know how many years the council would agree to go out, but that would be an easy way for us to raise some real money.
Sure, and I'm not familiar with that fee. That's not something that I would have worked with or had a part of, being a part of in particular. But I would say that we want to be open to any way possible to be able to do this. So in conversations with the council and with President Nook, if we felt that that was something that was a viable option, we'd want to look at any way to be able to have that support come to us. And so we'd be interested in having that conversation if the council felt that that was the best way to be able to make the investment, and the university felt that they agreed that that's the best way to go about doing it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Just hypothetically, if nothing was done to the dome right now, how much, I mean, there's many things, obviously the roof needs to be taken care of, but if nothing was done, how much, I guess, time would the dome have left?
That's hard to answer. I would say this because you mentioned the roof. Because the roof is at the end of its useful life, there's going to come a time very quickly where that is going to cause a problem that would prevent us from being able to have events within the facility. So you might have a facility that continues to stand per se, but is not usable because the roof is no longer meets the needs of the facility. And so that's an example of something that would happen relatively quickly if the investment wasn't made. Over time, I think what you would see is that the dome would ultimately become irrelevant within the entertainment landscape, the sports landscape, and attendance at events, at games, at other areas would decline to a degree that would have a serious economic detriment to the community. And so we want to obviously avoid that and be able to go in the other direction. The investment takes us in the other direction where those numbers are getting bigger, much more positive, more visitors, more success, and more entertainment within the facility.
Sure. So $21 million, or I'm sorry, excuse me, $17 million may for sure decrease over time if we did not give the attention to this facility.
Absolutely. I want to put an exclamation point on the last point there, right? This building isn't in danger of falling down anytime soon. If it was, we wouldn't be having this conversation, we'd be having another one. What's important here is that we keep this a great place for people to come for these events, a place that home shows want to come and have a home show, a place that these volleyball tournaments want to come and have a volleyball tournament, a place that the first robotics competition wants to come and be here, a place that the state high school championships are happy to welcome football teams and people from other communities here. If this becomes a facility that stands up but doesn't welcome, then it's over, right? So we've got to, at this point, look at it and say, what do we need to do to keep this not just a viable place, but a place that's going to attract these events to our city? Because if we're not attracting those events, then that $17 million economic impact starts to fall pretty quickly. We don't get the home shows. We don't get the tournaments. We don't get the visitors that come for those, staying in our hotels, eating in our restaurants, shopping in our businesses, spending money in our downtown. That's what this project is really about.
Thank you.
I have a question, a couple questions actually. One, do we do any soccer in the dome? I'm not familiar with, we didn't show any slides, so my question will be, do we host any soccer stuff in the dome?
Typically, we will have soccer practices in the dome. Now that we have an on-campus facility, we typically won't have soccer matches in the dome. We do indoor track and field. We'll have softball. We have football. We have wrestling. We have a number of different sports. But soccer usually is happening at our outdoor facility.
Okay. I was just curious to kind of roll into how close are we to being able to host like NCAA events and things? Are we capable of doing that yet? Or I know there's like stipulations on size of hotel availability within the city and stuff. Could you elaborate on what would we have to do to get to where we can host NCAA events?
Yeah, that would depend on the sport that you're interested in. So let's say that you're interested in hosting basketball within the dome. In that situation, there are certain requirements that you would have to meet as far as not only what does a facility hold, but looking at the area and hotels and businesses and guarantees that you can provide. I will say that we're obviously already hosting NCAA playoff games from a football standpoint. But if we're looking at other sports, specifically within the dome, we'd have to work with the NCAA to make sure that we can meet those requirements. So I'm not certain how far away we are, depending on the sport, to be able to host something. I will say that those requirements end up being pretty specific. And if we were ever in a position where we thought that was something that made sense for us, then we would absolutely want to go after that opportunity.
Okay. I was just curious. Thanks.
Sure.
Other council members? Yes.
I understand that there's going to be less general seating potentially, and with the suites, will there be an increase in seating on that aspect? And the reason I ask that is, will we see the revenue potential increase with this investment? And then are there projections, you said 17 million to the community, that with the renovations that we bump that up, and how long will it pay for itself?
So there will be a decrease in the amount of seating. Right now, we're at about 16,400. with widening the aisles, adding in the new seats, and adding in the premium seating areas, that'll take us down to just under 14,000. Where we feel the return on the investment is that the modernization of the facility will bring in more people for those events than we have right now. And so even though we're decreasing the capacity, we're making the attractiveness of the building more significant so that we have better crowds for the different events that we have going in. You mentioned the $17 million. We don't have a firm number to be able to say as these investments are made that we know that that number will go to this amount, so that over a 5-year or 8-year, 10-year period, it'll pay for itself because each year it'll go up by a certain amount. But we know that in looking at our competition, looking at other places that are multi-purpose facilities, looking at the investments that they are making day in and day out to make their facilities better or building new facilities, then we are definitely in a competitive environment. And if we don't make this investment, then that number is certain to go down. The degree to which it's going to go up is something we will continue to study. But we have to make the investment to be able to help us sustain what we have now. And so for us, it's not so much about how many seats we're going to have in the facility as what's going to be the quality of each of those seats and the experience that the people will have when they're coming to sit in the facility for whatever event we're sponsoring.
So then as a follow-up, how do we compare with other schools in stadiums and domes with 14,000? Other capacities, how do we rank in there?
Compare in what regard?
In our conference, in somebody traveling here, we travel there. Just kind of curious.
Yeah, and it depends. We did some benchmarking with facilities that they think were our peers. We are on par with many of them. There are some that are significantly bigger, and then there are a few that are smaller. So I would say, and you have that, Jamar?
Yeah. So some of the capacities, so for example, Conference School, Illinois State has 13,000 in their capacity, all the way to South Dakota, 10,000, 17 at Weber State, Missouri State, 17.5. So we did all the analysis of the capacity of those facilities, the average, the attendance, the ticket price. So we looked at all that as we took into consideration what this dome would look like and where we want it to be.
All right.
No, they're not all domes. They're the football facilities at those particular locations.
Other questions from council?
Should we check to make sure Gil's still there and
Oh, yeah.
hear us?
Gil, do you have any questions? Can you hear us? He's on board.
He could hear me earlier. Gil, can you hear us?
That's all right. Just jump in if you want to say something, Gil. Go ahead and jump in anytime. Interrupt me. Other questions here? My next question would be for staff. Obviously, I think this is an important project, and I think it's important that we as a council talk about this and see what we can do. As we go forward in the future, partnering with you and I is vital for the city, just because we coexist in a way that can really help each other, but we have to. We're here, and the more you succeed, the more we succeed. So I think this is a great project. I think it's very important that we step up as a city and work with you guys. So my question would be, how do we talk about this, and what does staff need out of this presentation tonight?
Well, excuse me. I think the big conversation is really going to happen at goal setting, and it's going to have to be weighed with other projects. But if this is something that the council wants to do, staff can look at some different funding opportunities to bring forward to you to evaluate.
So would it be appropriate for a motion to just talk about this at goal setting? I would open that up if there's a motion.
I want to make sure we talk about this at goal setting, whatever we need to do to make sure it's added to the conversation on those nights.
I think a motion would be appropriate just to make it official.
I move that we talk about funding sources or how we support the Dome project and city contribution to that.
Second.
Second that.
All right. Is there any conversation about just that motion? All right, no conversation. So all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. All right, looks like it passes unanimously. We will be talking about funding sources and how we can contribute to this conversation at goal setting. So with that, we'd like to thank you for being here and the presentation and doing what you guys do.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the time and the consideration. We feel this can be a great partnership for the community, so we really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, that wraps up the committee of the whole. So without anything else, it looks like we'll be back in about 13 minutes at the top of the hour for the council meeting, and the mayor will be heading that. So I will go ahead and adjourn this.
Simon.
Oh,
Simon, I just want to let you know, Gil texted me that, yes, he can hear not always everything, but he doesn't have any questions, and he was in favor.
Ah, cool. Thank you.
Unanimous.
We know, I appreciate it. And, well, with that, then I will go ahead and call this committee of the whole adjourned.